me.
Cool. Okay, so the whole point of this session was really to go back through and reanalyze, reconsultate, and look through the head of hair again to make sure that we can cover all different scenarios using Yellow Professional and doing it correctly, I suppose. I'm finding that since COVID, my clients have become a little bit conveyor beltish, where I've, especially with my tints, not so much necessarily the highlights, but with the tints, I suppose I've got some clients that I've been doing 15 years and I've kind of, same again, or I don't want to dare get into that conversation because I haven't got, although I've booked out more time, it's more for cleaning and getting the next client in because I can't really have other clients sitting in the salon waiting. So I don't think anybody actually can. So time was tight, and I think it kind of was just a bit of a case of getting the roots done, getting you done, getting you happy, and kind of moving on with business. So my biggest eye-opener is that it's really important just to stop, and we are specialists, and to reanalyze and look through again, because over that, I mean, how long was it we locked down for last time? 4 months.
Yeah.
Quite a long time. Things can change.
Yeah. Well, we had amazing sunshine as well, didn't we? And if you were furloughed, you probably spent quite a lot of time out in the garden. And I know I was still working, but even so, you kind of feel like my hair definitely was lighter with the sun. And, you know, I'd sit outside and have my lunch, or you go for long walks. It's quite a long time not to have a colour, isn't it?
It is, and also I think as well with stress, and quite a lot of people burnt their scalps and they might have had quite a lot of dry scalps. I think it's just important just to slow down, because I mean, you saw the video, the video live that went round to the girl that had the allergic reaction, who had a skin test and things like that. And I think sometimes it's just the case of just slowing down a little bit. And I know we can't because we've got to try and make money. We're in a bit of a situation where we're trying to make money. We're trying to make money back from what we've lost. Quite a lot of us probably didn't qualify for grants and furloughs and what have you. So it's kind of like we're trying to make up what we've lost. We're trying to put product on our shelves, but we're also trying to earn.
Yeah.
And I think we sit there thinking, okay.
But Lennie, if you, I'm going to sort of like throw another side of it. If you kind of get on that churn of just kind of like doing the roots, not really having time to sort of like think about what you're doing, it's just right, she's in, let's get this done, let's get her out, next one sitting in the chair. I still feel now women and men are looking for experiential. They still want to feel that they're being pampered. So if I am going to the salon or having my nails done or whatever that feels like, this is still a luxury part of my time, and it's probably the only time I'm actually going into a venue like this, because we're not going anywhere at the moment. So I totally agree with you. And I think also take time.
Yeah, and I also think it's like I was saying to someone the other day. They go, I'm really lucky. I've got loyal customers. My loyal customers will come back. I was talking to a hairdresser just back on the school run the other day, and she said, I was closed 4 months, but all my clients come back. I lost a handful. But why did you lose that handful? Next time you could lose another handful. And I said to her, I think it's the fact that we just assume because they've been with us for 10, 12, 15 years that they'll deal with us. And it's okay because bless Lennie, she's not working. She's now come back. She's now trying to fit everybody. They're not thinking that. It's still, there's part of them thinking that, but they're still spending 50 to whatever, 150 in the salon getting their service done. They're sitting at home, they may be furloughed, they're looking at social media a lot more. I've got even the oldest clients know what TikTok is. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not even that great at TikTok, but and I'm sitting there thinking, oh wow, you know what TikTok is. And older clients that I'm now seeing and following me on Instagram, and I'm like, wow, okay, you've opened up a little bit from Facebook. And I think they are more aware, and they are going to be seeing all these fabulous balayages that finish lovely, these people talking about different things. They're going to say, oh, well, I want that.
Yeah.
Why doesn't my hairdresser give me that? And I think it is just slowing it down. And it's like I was saying the other day, when you go to the doctors, he may sit there and he may know by just looking at you that you've got the flu or the cold, but he's still going to go through the steps to make sure that it's correct. And I think a lot of people, back when I trained, it was very much like you was a school cop-out. But actually now I think we've earned our worth. And I do think we need to slow down and show people, actually, we have, and give people that service that they expect. And most of it is consultation. Most of our mistakes are because we either didn't listen or didn't see. And that's kind of why I wanted to go through the whole steps and scenarios and what I would do with them.
Brilliant.
So distribution of pigment will be one thing that we'll be going over, and obviously natural base. So when I look at someone's head of hair straight away, my head goes natural base, percentage of white hair, is there any extra tones, what's going on the lengths and ends, and condition. They're all the things that I just generally look at straight away, and I kind of give it a little bit of a suss out before I've got too close. I do generally always ask my client as well if she minds me touching her head. And it's funny because I was client the first time after the last lockdown, and this woman, hairdresser, obviously come up to me, and I haven't been in a hairdresser for an incredibly long time. And she kind of came up to me and didn't even introduce herself to me, just said, sit down, and she was rummaging through my head. And I was a bit like, that's quite personal. I'd like to know who you are first, you know? And it was really weird because I was sitting there thinking, oh my God, how many times do I do that? So it's always important to say, like, do you mind if I look through? Because I am going to rummage through. I am going to look through the whole head. First thing I do look at is the scalp. Like we were saying earlier about there was a lot of sunshine. There's a lot of stress as well. I'm noticing a lot of itches, especially here. People are itching and they're getting quite stressed, whether that's because perhaps they've reduced shampooing and perhaps they're using more dry shampoos, hairsprays and stuff because they're not going out and they are on screens. They're just making that front bit look good. I don't know, but it's important to make sure that their scalp is in good condition before we start. When it comes to the natural base, I always find the natural base is a funny one because whenever I talk to people, they generally go, well, you know, she's about a 6 and a 5.
Yeah,
I always think
no, you can't be. You can't be.
No.
Either one or the other.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the same with colouring. I've noticed that people, they always like mix 632 with a 7. And I'm like, no, that's not really going to do an awful lot. If you're worried it's going to go too dark, then don't use a 6.
Yeah, and I just sort of, then your peroxide, it's sort of like, are you lifting to a 7 or are you depositing to a 6? And you've got to make it's not magic. This
No.
The tint and the peroxide, they've got to work together. And if they don't work together, then you're not going to get a great result. And that's I do see that quite a lot where I'm getting questions. Well, I'm mixing sort of an 8-3 and I'm adding a dash of 9 in, and I'm like, why
You might as well put it down the plug.
Yeah, it's just not, because your peroxide's not going to lift you. It's going to lift you to an 8, so the 9's just what's the point of that? So I think it's just some basics of what is your natural base and just why that is so important, and your target shade, obviously. But
yeah,
the
see,
bit in between is fascinating to me, and I love all what you're going to be talking about. But let's do the basics first.
Yeah, and I mean with natural base, I personally find that if like a client on a level base 3 and below, I always find I lose a level of lift.
Yeah.
And so if I am wanting a level of lift, a 20 isn't going to give me that. And I find that definitely on a level 3. And I think that's because there's so many more granular pigments in there to shift, because it is being so dense. It kind of just drops that little bit down from that base 4. And people get so confused with 4 and 3. And it's really important to make that decision and have a look. And like we were saying in the last meeting, the black and white video is brilliant. But how I analyse is lighting. Lighting's really important. So I do quite often move my clients, because I only have one. I don't have a big shop front. I only have like one really quite big window. So I'm in a gym. And I always move them up to the front of the window and have a look. I do have daylight light bulbs, which make your skin look horrendous, in the salon, that I do turn on when I'm doing a consultation now, because with COVID I can't keep on moving people to the window. But the daylight is really crucial because it allows me to really see the true natural base. And when I do a natural base, don't know if you can see my little mannequin head. She's a really freaky one, this one. I just make sure that I isolate all the coloured areas so that all I can see, if obviously the hair is coloured, all I can see is that natural base. And the reason why I do that is I think sometimes ends deter what I'm seeing. So if they're really blonde, sometimes I might feel like I'm seeing it a lot darker than what it actually is because of the contrast. So I just like to keep it completely isolated, and I ask myself, is it light, medium or dark? That's the first question I ask. Light being between 8, 9 and a 10. I haven't really seen many natural base 10s in this country. They do come about, but I haven't seen many. 9s are quite common at the moment, and 8s. And a medium, I would say, is like a 7, 6 and a 5, and a dark would be 4 and below.
So you want a bit there, Lennie, is just to start off with, simplifying it, light, medium, dark.
Yeah, simple.
That.
And when I teach consultations more in depth, I also do that with your skin and your eyes and your eyebrows. I put them all into a light medium, and then that's how I discover how light or dark you can be, what skin tone you should be.
At the time, I did know what my eyebrows were. Now I no longer know what my natural eyebrow is.
No, because we all tint them, don't we? Generally, they are quite similar to your natural. Sometimes blondes, you find them a little bit lighter, or if you've got blue eyes, you generally find eyebrows are quite a little bit lighter. But it's just the way that I go through what natural base, what base I will allow that client to go, how light or how dark I allow them to go. So I just simplifies it. And once I've got like, okay, it's a medium or it's a dark, I mean, obviously I know she's a dark, but I'm going to go through like the medium. And then is she a light, dark or a medium? Medium. So if she's a dark, I know that she's a 5. If she's a medium, she's 6. If she's a dark, then she's a 7, 5 or a 6. So I know if she's a light medium, she's a 7, middle, 6, dark, she's a 5. So it just breaks it down for me, makes my decision quite clear. Then I look at percentage of white hair, because that again is really important. Depending what your client's desired shade is, she may want to stick to the same as what she's already had. But the white hair, I think a lot of people get confused with white hair and they kind of look at it at a glance. And I always just simply look at it, is there more white hair than natural, or is there more natural? Again, I look through the back area. I'm finding quite a lot of clients at the moment have quite a lot of white under the occipital bone. Yeah, I don't know if that's a medicational thing, but I am finding I'm getting a random like spot through here. So it's really important to look all the way through, because you may need to do different mixes. If it's over 50%, generally I add base. And if it's under, you know that you can just go in with the shade that you choose to put on. So I always look at that natural percentage of white hair. If there's an awful lot of white hair, the DOP, which is what I'm going to go through next, is kind of irrelevant, because I can guarantee the client's main priority would be the white hair. But if there is still quite a lot of natural, I would look through the DOP. Now the DOP stands for distribution of pigment, and there's loads of information. I know you've done the science of hair with chalk.
Yes, it was really good, actually. Definitely recommend that course.
Yeah.
It's good.
She kind of works on the basis, because I think she comes from Brook and Brooks.
Yeah, everyone's got a different point of view on the DOP, and
yeah, they have, yeah,
how it works. But I think the principle is all the same, isn't it?
Yeah. But I think with the DOP, talking about it can really open a can of worms, because so many different brands as well deal with the DOP differently. Like Wella, they deal with it one way, L'Oreal deal with it a different way. I've already found my little quirky way is dealing with it with yellow. So I think it's all and what you see as well. So my daughter said to me today, how do I know you see yellow like I do? My brain literally just exploded. I was like, She went, describe it. And I went, okay, we'll try and describe yellow.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I'm sitting there like, my God, what have I made? So the DOP for me, I'm literally just wanted to touch on it here so that people can start looking for it and start wondering. And when something's not quite gone the way that they want, they can then rethink. And when that client comes back, have another look and think, oh, hang on, I can see that now. Because I do think products get over, I can't think of the word, expectations, but people don't necessarily use them properly.
I find that quite frustrating now about if and I know clients are coming in with pictures from Pinterest or from wherever that have been highly filtered to start off with, so not really true to life. But it's unique to that client, because that client has a genetic makeup of their hair, and you can't just say, oh, I used 8-1 and 9-2 on this in foils, and it's going to come out exactly the same. You can't, no one can do that. And that's where I think the whole kind of thing is, give me your formulas. What's your favorite formula for silvers, or what's your favorite formula for this? Yeah, I know how to get a silver on the client that's I'm looking in front of me, because I can see the tones in her hair, I can see the distribution of pigment, but that's unique to that person. So I might have to really clean it out for one person, or for another I can literally just add in the silver straight away and I'm done. But it's not as simple as that. So what you're talking about for me is so important. It's about that particular client, and you knowing your color wheel and knowing all those elements that you're putting together. Without that, and yet that's where people get disappointed. Oh, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, or I wasn't really happy with the tone or anything. That's not the tube of tints problem, that's your problem, because you didn't spend the time assessing the hair within that consultation.
But I do think DOP is something that they should be doing a little bit sooner. I mean, a lot of like the hair sciences and things like that are prestigious courses, or colour specialist courses, or, you know, like with other companies, science of hair it is. And I think, you know, we are generally taught on the 3 primary colours, and that's how it's meant for. So people kind of just look at it and think, oh, well, she's a base 4, she's going to be warm. She's a base 6, so she's going to be like an orange. And people think that because that's how they've been set. And they're not really thinking about actually once the oxygen has actually gone onto there, what's happening to the undercoat, and if they have got other warmths. So inside your hair, we have, I'm just going to try and get it a little bit closer. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can.
It had quite a few rude pictures on there this morning with the kids. So it was lucky that I noticed before I came on. Okay, so inside your hair structure, you have all these tiny molecules inside, and what these look like is the sand on the beach. So if you are walking along a nice sandy beach and all them little grains of sand, that's what these little pigments in here look like, and they are diffused throughout the whole cortex. Okay, so when we look at the protofibrils and the macrofibrils in the hair, that is all held together with like an intercellular cement, which is a whole pigment of your diffuse pigments, which also calls you pheomelanin. I can never say them.
That will do.
I can never say it, so I've never been able to either. And they're kind of yellow. In some cases, they could be quite orange in pigment. Okay, and they sit all the way throughout the hair. Then you have your euromelanins, which are like I call them granular pigments, which is easier if you're teaching this to assistants. And these fit all the way through your hair, and they're like coffee beans. So they look like a coffee bean kind of colour. And they are actually made up of your blue, red, and your yellow. So your main primary colours. And they all sit in that granular pigment. The more granular pigments you've got, the darker the hair will be. The less you have, the lighter the hair will be. Okay. Some people can still be quite light and still have really big pigments.
Yeah.
Okay. So everyone's kind of makeup's different. It's like a DNA, isn't it? The whole hair is its own DNA. So everybody's makeup is slightly different. But we worked on the whole theory originally when you do college, that it's equal amounts, because that makes your neutral.
Yeah.
Your blue, red, and yeah. And you know, if you mix up, if you're doing painting, you've only got to mix equal amounts of that, and you do get a neutral. Generally, it's a brown. I call it a neutral because as soon as you say brown, people assume that will always be in dark hair.
Yeah.
So it just brings you back to that neutral colour. And this is what's quite important, because if you think of this being neutral, so I'm just going to turn it around just a little bit. If I see someone, okay, that's looking a little bit orange, okay, so if I've lifted someone and they look orange, which I know that I've got these 2 pigments in the hair, all I know is I need to add an equal amount of blue, and it brings me back to my neutral. Okay, so that's why this kind of makeup in that pigment is quite important.
I know
Now
we
you will
talked about this the other day, but about when you're lightening the hair with a bleach or a lightener, whatever you call it, and you won't actually know any of this until you've gone through the process, will you?
oh yeah, sometimes, yeah, and it can be quite annoying. But if I was to see someone that is quite, like, I look at them and nothing's jumping out at me, I would say that they're an even distribution, and that's when I go down my normal knowledge of what I'm using, you know, levels of lift of mioxidant, undercoats, general, and that's how I would work. But some people, this makeup changes, and it can be quite infuriating, especially if we don't necessarily see it. So when I'm analysing the distribution of pigment, I always make sure that I've got the hair perfect light, isolating all coloured areas, and I bounce the hair back on each other. Mm-hmm. And generally I move it about and you can see flecks. Actually, on this mannequin head, you can see real flecks of blue, which is a shame that we won't be able to see that. So I'm going to start with the blue DOP because that's a bit easier. Blue DOP normally looks quite dusky. So if you think, when you see sometimes people look like they've got like a blue haze over their hair, and when you've got a blue DOP, it's fabulous if you want to lighten them. And a lot of darker Asians with really fine hair can be blue, and people will go in with like a strong pre-lightener because they just see dark, because it can look quite dense. And then they're surprised when they go back and it's lightened, or the condition's sacrificed because they've left it on because they thought it's going to take a lot longer, or put under heat, which obviously we don't recommend. But all these tricks that we do in salon to kind of, because we see is black or really dark, but a blue DOP will lift really quickly. Now, if you think back to your normal science, when you've got your granular pigments, when we go through that lightening process, blue's the first one to go. You don't even see it. If you had that foil open and you were watching that lightening process, you wouldn't see the hair go blue because it goes so quickly. It's quite frustrating because technically a coloured blue is a blinking nightmare to get out, but a natural blue is a nightmare. But as my next door neighbour wants to take her blue out and go back to platinum, and I'm considering on doing this a video for you guys, but I'll record it not live because there could be a bit of language in that one. So the blue instantly comes out, and then that's when we start seeing the reds, the oranges, the yellows, and that's when that's lifting up. And that's all through your granular and your diffuse pigments that flow throughout that hair cortex. If that's a blue, it's going to go quite quick, because there's not much of the red there because there's so much more blue. So it's almost like taking this diagram and making it like this. I do have an undercoat diagram that I made for this, actually, which shows the undercoats, and then it gives you the even distribution, and it gives you loads more blue and loads more yellow, so you can see it a little bit more on a graph, which I find a bit easier. So if I've got rid of most of blue, which is most of my pigment, there's not much of red and yellow left. So the colour hasn't got to work so hard. So it does lift really quickly. But the problem also in that case is that if you've got someone who wants to be warmer or red, it's not going to hold. So if I had someone that came in with a blue DOP, which is quite rare, but I have had quite a few, and they want to be like a nice, rich 526, I'll have to let them know that they're going to have to probably come back and have it refreshed, maybe a semi put through, mid application, or maybe even make up a colour shampoo if you can, if you've got that option, because it will fade really quickly. And quite often when a client comes in that's got really dark hair, you'll see through the lengths and ends it's faded. So that kind of does give you an inkling that, you know, they're blue. And my hair, I'm a bit blue and yellow. I'm a bit of a combination. And I lift really quickly, but my hair doesn't stay warm, as you can probably see. Right, so the blue one's a nice one. When we see blues coming in, we get quite excited because we know we're going to get them nice ashies and creamies, yeah, especially if they're on a natural base 6 and they're a blue, you know you're winning. But the next one, yellow, which can be a bit of a nightmare. We have two different. You can have a medium yellow, which is just a little flicker. So just as you're flickering it through and you're doing this, you'll just see that slight bit of warmth, but just be aware of dormant hair. So if they are already coloured and their hair's grown down quite a bit, If you do see some hair that's going up, that's looking a bit of a different tone, or the colour that you put through, we call that dormant hair. And what that means is that the hair grows all in different rates all throughout the hair, and just some of them areas that we've tinted haven't quite caught up with the rest yet. So we're seeing that. So just always be aware that there could be dormant hair there too. Now, if I saw yellow, it literally, generally, just as you get it on the arch, you'll see it shimmer yellow. You'll also notice the ends don't stay brilliant. They go quite yellow. On an excessive yellow, you'd see it quite easily. And it's the medium yellow that's the pain, because that can quite easily hide. And you can look at someone and think they're going to be quite easy to lift, and especially on lighter bases. And then you put the pre-lightener on, and then you see it literally, it is like beacon yellow. You're like, oh, great. And the problem with that is it will just stop. You'll hit that brick wall and they won't get beyond that yellow. So what we always say with yellows, always up your oxidant, which I know people are under the like slow and low. With a yellow, you can't do that, because your 20 vol will no longer be 20 vol. Your 30 vol will act like a 20 vol. So you will need to up your oxidants. If you are bleaching, I always say mix small and often, because your first power, and what bleach is amazing what bleach does, because it goes in and it actually makes holes in the hair, instead of really like going through. I think we're always under this illusion that it's going to go through and actually lighten your hair, but it actually makes your hair transparent, like grey hair, I suppose. And if you think grey hair, where that is translucent and all the pigments are missing, it is very fragile. It doesn't have a UV filter. So I think people assume, because it can be quite coarse and quite wiry, that it's quite strong and quite stubborn, but actually it's incredibly fragile. And that's exactly the same as what kind of pre-lightener does. It goes in and it just puts loads of holes into the hair, so that it gives you that illusion, I suppose, that it's blonde.
I had quite a few people. I actually had somebody yesterday contact me on Messenger just as a bit of advice, and I actually thought of you of what we've been talking about. Is she's a client that does had a lightener on her hair, and she's wanting to go copper, and she's only want to put her down to an 8.4, and she says, would you pre-pigment the hair? And I'm like, well, yes. And she's like, yeah, but I'm only going to an 8.4. And I was like, but you've got to think about all those holes that you put in there. Whatever you put in is going to come out quite quick, so we need to sort of, put those yellow tones back into the hair. And I was kind of like, oh, I got her to where I wanted it to be, and I was like, you need to come and watch what we're going to be talking about, because this will make sense. Because I don't think people think about that. They think you're just blonde at the minute, I'm only going to drop you to an 8, so it's going to be fine. No, you've lost those yellow tones, those yellow pigments. So it's nothing. We've
spent so long getting them out, we definitely need to put them back in, especially with a copper, because it won't be as powerful. And then that's when you get the root glow. And then people like they're sitting under that bulb in the salon, and it's like,
and then you get wishy-washy kind of things through the middle.
And it doesn't last.
Yeah.
And I think as well, this is kind of part of us. I know as a hairdresser, we're torn, because we want people to come in every 5 to 6 weeks, but we also want their colour to last.
Yeah.
We just want to be able to focus on their regrowth, colour change if necessary, or when we feel and refresh the lamps and nails. That's the kind of the thing for me. But yeah, so if you've got lots and lots of yellow to break through, and them granular pigments are incredibly strong, there's a lot of holes to go through. I saw a experiment the other day, which was brilliant, done by a bit of paper and some pens, and it was one bit of paper and they put the pens through, and the pen went through one bit of paper really quickly, and that's like your blue DOP. And then they put like 2 bits of paper together with a biro pen, held up. You couldn't see through it quite so much anymore because of all that yellow being so dense. And they tried putting a pen through it again, and it wouldn't go through quite as quickly, like literally proper trying to work at it. And that's exactly what yellow DOP is like. If you imagine that 2 bits of paper up, and you're trying to find a clean bit of paper here. Trying to put a biro through that, if you can't see through it, that's like a DOP, that's like a yellow DOP, and you're trying to put a biro through, it's going to take a lot more hard work. Whereas if it's a lot thinner and you can kind of see through it, now I'm holding, if I've got someone to hold that nice and tall and I went to go and put my pen through that, it would go through a lot easier and quicker. So that lighting process, you'd see the light. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Where was the experiment? That sounds really good. Is it on Facebook, was it?
you know what? It was on, I can't remember now. It was ages ago because it was a friend of mine, Elise, Annalise, that used to work for L'Oreal, and she worked for another salon for a little while, not another salon. But we used to do it. We used to teach it when we taught. And it came to me the other day. I was like, why have I not said this before? Because it's brilliant. And it is literally get someone in the office to hold a nice thin bit of paper up, get a biro and stab it, and you'll see how quick the pen goes through and how much the light comes through that paper, and that shows how blonde the hair will go. And just put two bits together, get someone to hold it again, try and do it again. It's a little bit tougher. It's going to take you a little bit more time, but the light will gradually come through, but perhaps not so much because it's had to work a lot harder. And that's exactly what like the yellow DOP is like. So that's why we generally up the oxidant. And in that sense as well, that's even included not just in pre-lightening, but if someone was wanting to go 2 levels lighter, you might need to use a 40 vol rather than a 30, because that yellow is still going to hinder that look. And if you want a true shade chart result, you need to go through this process. Otherwise it can look heavy, the tone might look a little bit lost, you're not going to get that perfect result. So yellow DOP and excessive yellow DOP can sometimes lose 2 levels of lift as well. So on a pre-lightener, I probably would still stick to a 30 depending what desired shade that I'm going, but with a tint you'd need to really bear that in mind, because if someone's thinking that they're going to look like a natural base 6, and although the tint will lift to a 6 because that's what its brain mechanism is to do, because it's all got the pigments of 6, it would be a very heavy 6, so it would look like a 5. So you're thinking you're going to get a lovely, beautiful, bright, coppery 6, but it's going to have that density to it, so it's not going to look as rich as you want it to.
So lighteners, this is another subject that I think is really interesting. They're called 7 levels of lift and 9 levels of lift. Very confusing, and some people may expect that just because it says 9 levels of lift that you are going to get that. That's not nice.
But it's interesting because I was in a salon before lockdown doing training on lighteners and toners, because that's kind of something I spend quite a lot of time on. And in the salon as well, I spend way too much time at the backwash with toning. And I was saying to this girl, I said, right, so what natural base do you use? She said, I'm natural base 6. I said, okay, cool. We're going to use the 9 levels. And we're doing it up on the mirror, a little case study, natural base, levels of lift. And she's going, okay, so it's going to take me to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I was like, well, 15 doesn't even exist. That's breakage. Do you know what I mean? She said, yeah, but we'll watch it for as long. And I know there's a lot of hairdressers out there that will leave pre-lightener on for hours. And I've seen it. They do the greys and this, but they are reapplying. They are reapplying a fresh pre-lightener over the top of that foil. So they are reactivating it the whole time, which is what they never say on there. They're like, yeah, I'll just pre-lighten that and foils, fine waste for 4 hours. Olaplex. And I'm like, have you really? Or have you applied more product? Oh, yeah, we've applied more product. So it, you can leave it on for hours and hours and hours. It's just going to start now. The oxidant, and this is the crucial bit of mixing properly too. I'm now trailing off completely, but people will say to me, oh, I just mix my products together. If you put too much oxygen in something, you're going to burn the hair. Oxygen is incredible. Like, when you get oxygen on your fingers, it goes white and it can be quite painful after the insect, especially if you get under your nail. Oxidant does, and that's how we tan, because when the sun comes out, the oxygen increases and it affects our skin and it tingles, and that's how we can burn, because that's what oxygen does. It's a happy gas. It makes you feel happy too, which is brilliant. But if you're going to put too much oxidant into a bleach, the oxidant's just going to go onto the hair. The bleach isn't going to be able to work so hard. You're just burning it. Whereas if you put too many granules on, you're not getting the power again, because it needs the oxidant. So there's a reason, and that's the same as with the tints as well. If you're not mixing them properly and blending them properly, then colour molecules are just kind of floating around, not really sure what's going on. They need to be blended in, and that's why I love the pink so much as well. I got so excited at that time, because it does, it gets, and the results you get when it's completely blended is so much better. You don't want, putting too much oxygen in, you're putting risk on the scalp as well.
You can almost create that kind of volcano effect if you've not mixed your oxidant and your granules perfectly.
Yeah.
And you've whipped it up too much and you're putting extra oxygen in there as well. It can get ridiculously hot. I don't know if you've ever experienced it, where it's just like and it almost like pops up, doesn't it? It turns into sort of I don't even know what you call it, marshmallowy type of texture.
Yeah, really airy.
Not good.
But that comes back to the science of hair again, doesn't it? Because oxygen is what activates most things. That's what oxygen is. It's 20 volumes of oxygen with hydrogen, and that's what's going to lift the hair. So this is why we also, as yellow, I think, don't use heat. Because as soon as you put heat onto someone's head, that oxygen level is going to rise. And we don't know if it's a 20 volume, 30 volume or a 40 volume anymore. It's completely, we don't know. So when that client comes back, yes, great, they were under the heat for 15 minutes and we're in a bit of a rush today. But when they come back, the chances are they're going to have a band of white hair that's a bit translucent because it hasn't covered, because it's come away. And the way I always used to explain that to people is it's like buying a frozen pizza. We've all done it in our teens. We've bought a frozen pizza. We're going out for a night out, just finished work quite late, chuck the frozen pizza in, wang up the heat, look at it, think, God, it looks burnt. Pull it out, but it's still frozen in the centre. And that's exactly what the heat's doing. It's just going, boom, I'm going to make you work. But actually, in the insides, it's not doing anything. So it's quite, again, all this technology, all this technical knowledge and all stuff we know, but we are changing. It's like I did a course the other day just about retail, selling it, and I sell quite a lot of retail, but there's things that she said, I was like, oh, damn, I know that. Why have I not done that?
Yeah, you just forget. And that's the whole point of some of this. Some of, you know, people might be watching this on the recording and kind of like, oh, I know this, but are you actually doing it? And that's the question, you know, are you going through this process? Are you checking the DOP? Because if you're not, then you're not getting the results that you could have.
Yeah, and quite a lot of the time you do find that I see comments coming up and in any forums, and you sit there and I think, well, I could say something now, but that's going to open a whole can of worms.
Yeah.
Because there's so much more to it, and you can't see the person either. So it's even harder when you're trying to like analyse something from a screen. So with the yellow DOP, it is quite crucial to look at it because you will need to up your oxidants, maybe change products. Some things are unreachable as well. And I think, you know, it's like I've got a client and she keeps on saying, I want to be white, I want to be white. So it's not going to happen. It's not going to. If you want to be white, you are going to sacrifice your condition. This is not going to be a long-term. The thing is, half the time you do get them white and they don't like it anyway because it drains their skin tone out.
Yeah.
So, you know, especially if you do that silver, they don't realise actually how dark ash looks. You know, warm appears lighter, ash appears darker. They don't realise that until they haven't got a ring light and they're not on Pinterest.
I do get that quite a bit because we've obviously got the cool bases. And when we introduced the cool bases, I were getting people saying that, well, it's not as, it doesn't lift the same as what the rich natural bases. And we'll go, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but it looks, the colour chop fell over. It's not the lifting capability, it's the tone that you're seeing. Yeah. And ash does look darker, and you need to factor that into it. The more blue pigments you put into the hair, the darker your hair looks.
Yeah, and it's funny because some people go, oh, you know, I really want it silver, so it looks really light. And I'm like, it's not going to look light. You either need to be that kind of white or that little bit warm if you want to appear. It's optical illusion is so clever.
A beige blonde would look so much lighter. So on the front of my hair here, I'm more beigey. So, and it looks quite light at the moment. But if I put an ash on it, it would look so much darker. I would look at least like an 8 if I had the ash on it.
But I think this is the important thing as well, is re-educating the clients. They don't know. They go on Pinterest. They might go sneaking on a couple of hair forums and think they know. I saw a lady, like you saw the bicarb lady. I saw a lady that bought Effusor, and she bought it because someone recommended it on a page, not a hairdresser. She's gone home. She's applied this whole Effusor into her head and put a cap on and left it. Literally, my heart was in my mouth.
The bicarb one, it was bicarb, wasn't it? That means
there was a bicarb one, but literally after I spoke to you, someone done it with Effusor. So they've gone into a wholesale and bought Effusor, and no experience whatsoever. And anybody in the hairdressing industry will know that Effusor is frightening at the best of times. She put it all on her head, with oxidant, put a cap on, and just left it. She literally had bald patches. I was just like, why would you do that? But anyhow, that's why they come to us, or should come to us. So the yellow DOP is probably your most trickiest because most people hate DOP, yellow in their hair. They always find it looks brassy. You get the odd ones that like it, but they're more like the more caramels, I think, if anything. So it's really important just to make sure that you know, because you don't want to start lifting and get caught out. And then you've got your red DOP. That's quite obvious. so you know your redhead straight away. They don't have too much difficulties in lightening, but then I would never think to turn a redhead blonde. Personally, I would probably, and if they
much is it?
And if they are going to be blonde, because I do have one, and she is quite blonde, but she does go quite warm. I think we're probably more like a 9-3. It depends on how dark they are, but they're not as stubborn as a yellow. And I think that's purely because yellow, you've got double of them with your diffused and your granulars. And if you've got more of it anyway, that's a lot of yellow in a hair to lift, and it's quite a stubborn colour to get through. Whereas red isn't too stubborn because you can turn it to orange and then to yellow. So it does gradually get there. But with red hair, it can be quite fragile. So always make sure that you look through and just don't overpromise. I mean, it's knowing straight away what a client is able to have. And if they can't have it, you're not a failure for saying so. It's like I said to my husband the other day, oh God, this client really wants white hair. If I really wanted to dedicate 8 hours, which I know she wasn't going to pay for, I could have probably got it to white. But I probably would have sacrificed quite a lot doing that. And for me, she's going to be walking around advertising me.
Yeah,
I'm going to be seeing her on the school run, and I'm sitting there thinking, I don't want her walking around looking like she's got frazzled hair. It might look amazing once you've put all the Bond hero and everything in, and I know that lasts, but what are they going to do with it once they get home? Are they physically going to buy and invest the products that's going to look after it? Are they actually going to look after it and not singe it? I mean, after last lockdown, the singes are fringes from straightening eyes. I literally complained. I was like, what is wrong with you people? Why are you literally just frying your fringe? It must be because it was all on Zoom and they just did this front bit every day.
I live my life on Zoom. I get it. It's quite difficult having to do it every day.
Yeah.
I had one of my friends, I saw her on FaceTime the night, and she was like, oh, I love your hair colour. I was like, thank you very much. And she's like, do you think I can have that? She's got massive roots at the moment because she was due to come and see me before we locked down. And I was like, yeah, you could technically wear her base, and I know I could get her to sort of have a banded face frame. And I said, but it's not that. It's the fact that I have to have my colour done every 5 weeks now, because this bit, no, I could go ages with this bit, but this bit here, it's an upkeep and you can't leave it. I'll get banding. It's a scalp bleach. It's every 5 weeks. Oh no, don't want to do that. And it's just, I think sometimes we have to really understand our client, just how often are they coming back into the salon? Will they commit to having treatments? Because this is fragile, this front bit here, because I've got a scalp bleach on it. I am putting Bond Hero treatments on in between, and I am looking after it with the right products, obviously. But it's that commitment, isn't it, of not just, I can get you to a white, irrelevant of your skin tone, irrelevant of how often you're going to be coming in, and your aftercare, are you going to look after it? Isn't there so much more now?
And I also think people forget when they see that it's becoming winter, they don't think that they still have to protect their hair. Like in the summer, everyone goes mad buying products because they're going on holiday, they're out in the sun, or they're swimming, or they're going to be in pools. I'm like, are you not thinking about the rain, all the materials? I mean, your hair is a fibre. And if you're putting like scarves, hats, it's getting friction all day long. You've got the wind, the rain. I'm a nightmare. I always get absolutely soaked. Not now I've got my new umbrella, as you've seen. But, you sit and you think, it is still going through a lot of wear and tear, and the cold, like your skin. And it's like I said to someone the other day, you go on holiday, you've got sun cream on all the time, you put after sun on, because we're aware of aging, burning. We're a lot more aware of it than when I was probably going on holiday a lot as a kid. But when in the winter, we're not looking at how dry. I mean, here sometimes is like horrendous.
Doesn't it? So the central heating, so that kind of dry heat that we've got in the house now, really, I feel difference in my skin. I feel like it's like when I put my moisturiser on, it's like, so maybe I need to change my moisturiser for the winter.
And that's exactly the same with hair care, isn't it? And it's like clients said to me, well, I always use this. And I'm like, well, the good thing is that when you're using a shampoo and conditioner range, that bottle might be perfect for you at that time when you've finished it, because that's when it really has done its job, when you've finished it. maybe reassess and look at something else. But it is re-educating our clients, and they all come in with these amazing expectations, and they don't understand that. Like I had a client that's gone down to, she was a 632 and she's now gone down to a 426. She now wants to go back to 632. Now, in the consultation, to say to her that will be a cleanse, may not necessarily happen because she's got really good conditioned hair. She's been coming to me now for 17 years. And I said to her, so I've got to try and cleanse that out and take lighter. And I told her that. She's like, yeah. And we've done it 3 times, because she comes every 3 weeks. So think of me before Christmas, trying to get her back to a 632. But, you know, it's letting them know that, yes, change is all good, but, you know, they've got to sacrifice if they do want to go back, or they want to change, like the balayages, they all want to do the root drag of the balayage. Actually, I want to go back to blonde again. Okay, but it might be a bit warmer this time, because we've got to get through that tint now. And then they don't get it because they're like, I've got highlights under there. Not up here, you haven't, because, you know, that was regrowth prior. I've just dragged it down a little bit. So it is just talking to your clients and understanding it all, and understanding that DOP and what your product can actually do with the DOP will make your life a lot easier. Because if a client that's got a yellow DOP, for instance, or a redhead, and they're showing you pictures of these lovely, gorgeous Pamela blondes, that's not going to happen. And that's when we've got to sit there and say, that's not going to work. But what I can show you, and I do have a tablet in the salon, and I just go back through and I'll have loads of mood boards that I've made on myself, a PowerPoint, and loads of different, just show them what foliage, what pieces look like through the fringe, what a couple of panels look like. Because I'm quite old fashioned still with doing just a couple of slices underneath and making it look like balayage. But they haven't got the time to sit there and have it done, or the money for a full on balayage treatment. And I just show them what a hint of golden looks like, or what this looks like. And, you know, I'll say to them, right, I can't get you to that, but this is what I can get you to, and this will be beneficial for you because it will last longer, it will look healthier, and work it with them. And I think that's really quite important. But the DOP does have a massive and correct base. Natural correct base is huge. I also find white hair, a lot of people analyse white hair quite wrong. They see a lot and they think, or they'll see a lot through this front section. So they'll assume, well, it's 100% all over, and it might not actually be 100%. It might just be a temple that they've got that's incredibly strong, and then they go and treat it like 100%, or they might not look at it too much and don't treat it for 100%.
The density that you can create with that, and I know we're going to sort of talk about that in a minute, but you know, sometimes if you are covering white hair and you want white hair coverage, which some clients want blanket coverage, no sort of signs at all. I'm the opposite. I have demis now on my white. I'm not bothered by it. I prefer to have more different tones. I'm not bothered about the white hairs that I can see. But I think you can sometimes make hair look really dense if you treat it wrong and assume and put too much colour on, you know. And like you said, we talked about hairlines, and then we discussed that last week. But you can make it look really wiggy by applying the hairline first.
But this is the thing, and also as well, like we were talking last week, when it comes to like the yellow DOP, because a lot of people, I mean, I've got a few clients, you wouldn't see it until you started lighting it, like we were talking at the beginning of here. But the key areas are like your temples, like you were saying, your client or your friend's got them on the temples. So when I'm looking for any other DOPs and I'm really struggling, I either look on the ends, and I know that a blue would really fade and the yellow would look really yellow still. It would look really warm. So I would know that. So that would give me a little bit of an idea, especially if they've been pre-lightened, because it goes quite heavy, brassy after a bit of time. So I'd know that for the next sense. But also with the yellow, because quite a lot of Irish have yellow, and they actually look quite ash. Like my husband's got Irish in him, and when you look at his hair, he looks quite dirty ash. But I did a little bit of bleaching it because his skin tone, and you can see a couple of little patches in it, quite warm. Yellow is not the word. That guy is so yellow, and it is mad. But you can look around like temple areas, especially after the summer, because the sun would have hit it and lightened it up a little bit, and you would really see it's kind of like a yellow, like kind of kid when you see children go out in the sun. My middle one's a typical yellow DOP. You just got to look at her. It is Cinderella yellow. She's going to hate it when she's older. So It is, and this is what it's kind of like slowing down and rethinking. And if you can't see it, don't panic. Move them to the window or ask them, what was your hair like as a kid? Because quite generally, the DOP was quite visible as a kid. You find that quite a lot of children were maybe a little bit Teasian or a little bit more warmer as a child. And they were like, oh, well, actually, I was a bit of a strawberry blonde as a kid, but now I've gone quite mousy.
Teasian. That is. I've loved that for ages. I used to have college Teasian.
Yeah, Teasian. I love Teasian. I do love my descriptive words.
Yeah, I love that.
So I only say that because I always call my little girl Teasian, the Teasian head, my little Teasian head. She's like, because everyone was calling her a redhead and being really quite horrible, and she was like, actually, it's Teasian, and everyone was just like, oh, and then it got a bit boring. So I would always check around these areas, and if you're really in doubt, do a quick strand test. You don't have to cut the hair off. Just literally just do like a little circle, little swatch like that, and put a bit of base 10 on with 20 vol, and literally 2 minutes, 3 minutes. If there's yellow in there, it's going to come up pretty quickly. Okay, so I do use base 10. That's a little tip with 20 vol, and I would literally just put it on the area that I'm focused on around the back, so you can't see it, so it would look like a highlight a little bit later on, or we'll colour over it, but literally not even 5 minutes and it will start lifting. Amazing. And you'll see the yellow undercoat in there. So once I've gone through like DOP, white hair, obviously the client may have already told me what she wants. I may have already seen pictures sent to me via Messenger or whatever, because they all seem to send me thousands at the moment, all that look really, really, really different, actually. I said to the client, she goes, I don't want to look copper or ginger, and literally every picture was like a 7/4. I was like, that's quite...
People think the word copper means to them, isn't it? Or the word gold means to them.
I'm like, okay. And then I showed them some celebrities with the colour where you can see their face. And they're like, no, I don't want it like that. Don't want that redhead. Right. Okay, so we'll take it back a little bit. So it is quite interesting how people see colour. But that's a whole different consultation. So then once I've kind of got through what I'm working with on the roots and how long the regrowth is, because that's important as well, and asking, you know, when was the last time they had their hair coloured, my next one is to battle is these lengths and ends. What am I going to do with hair? So firstly, the most important thing for me is to check the condition, because condition, like you were saying earlier with like when pre-lightener, and if you've made loads of holes in it, or if the hair is really sensitised, that will make a huge difference in what you're going to do moving forward. Because like we were saying, you can pre-lighten someone up and get them in a really beautiful base, and you kind of sit there thinking, oh, I've got a lovely like inside of banana, you know, very pale yellow. That's a really good ideal canvas for toning, and you sit there thinking, brilliant, that's all lifted up, gorgeous. Now what tone are you standing? You look at them all and think, oh, what are they going to have? Shall I make it a bit minky, a bit pearly? If their hair's porous or sensitised, that toning is going to be a pain, because you could put it all the way through, and if they're really sensitised here, it's going to drop down here, and you're going to have like really probably quite heavy minky and quite pearlized minky here. So it's really important to analyze it all, because a lot of people say, well, my hairline's gone blue. Well, it will. Just don't tone the hairline first, and we don't apply a tint generally at the hairline first, because the hairline loves colour. It does take most wear and tear. It also gets cleansed. It gets cleansed with our makeup. It gets lightened by the sun a hell of a lot. It generally gets washed, the front of your hairline, even if not washing your hair, for when you're washing your face. And it goes through quite a lot, your front of your hair, and it's finer in general. So these areas I wouldn't apply colour to, because it is got, and then you're going, like you said earlier, you have that density through the front, and then that like, and quite often you see it when people colour their own hair at home, it's really dense here, and then the rest of it's not at all, because this is the area they see and they panic about. It doesn't matter how much product you put on, their white hairs are still going to grow back. And this is what people say. They go, put a little bit more on there. It's not going to stop the growth. It is still going to come back. So it is just a case of like mixing your products correctly. Oh, someone at the door. Mixing the products correctly, making sure you have plenty of products, blending the products well, and application is key. Sorry, she's really noisy.
I'm just looking at my dog like, is he going to say?
Yeah, she won't shut up, my one. She'll carry on and on and on and on until she's worn herself out. She's only little. She's a little chihuahua. Marley! Marley! She's not. She wants that postman. That's what it is. So it is no mixing, and correct development times as well. Really important. I'm just going to literally shut her up for a second. So noisy. So it is about development times. It is about mixing through, application is key, you know, hot cross buns, nice fine sections, which again is obvious, but I think people are now, sections are getting bigger because they're trying to apply it quicker. They're not perhaps applying it all the way through both sides quite as much. They're probably reducing the amount of product they're mixing because of money.
Yeah, and you need to place that colour onto the white hairs and not brush it off. You need to have enough product to allow the saturation as well.
Yeah, apply it on. I always apply my white hair first, all the way through, go all the way over, do the hairline last, and then whatever I've got left in the bowl, I just go through, over, use it all, and make sure it's like, because you get some bits that pounce stick up.
Yeah.
Just make sure they're all flattened down. So when I look at the condition on the lengths and ends, first off, I'll feel for porosity, and generally you just can run your fingers. I normally take a little section. I'll do a big one so you can see it, and I will run it backwards. And if I can feel any rough areas, I know that the hair is porous. Now, porosity will absorb colour at different rates, but it will also appear darker. It'll absorb more depth. So it will take the depth, not necessarily the tone, so it could look quite flat. But so if you probably applied a natural base 5 on, it's probably going to look like a 4 in areas, and that's sometimes when you get banding. Now, what I would do with that is that if the lengths and ends are all quite porous, I'll reduce the length of time that the colour's going to go on the lengths and ends, or lower the oxidant, or go for a tone on tone, so that it's not, especially if I'm toning, so I'll check them areas. I'll do my stronger areas first, and then I'll just be aware that I may need to knock my oxidant down or dilute the product a little bit more. And what I mean by that is, if I'm doing a 10 with a 10-2-1, I'll probably knock the 10-2-1 down a little bit and just make sure that, because it will just grab.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just what I love about tone on tone is that you have more control with it. So your mixing ratio 10-1, but you can go all the way up to 10-5 for somebody that is really porous, and it just gives you more time, and you're not going to be sort of pushing it into the hair as quick. It's I find that really helpful.
Yeah, and it's good, and you can pop your Bond Hero in as well, and it gives it all like the lovely condition. And I think, you know, it is important with porosity, because a lot of people go, oh, you know, I've done this kind of, it can make it look not so shiny at all. So it's really important to analyze it on that sense, and with your toners. And it is, yeah, like you say, tonal tone's great for it, but just be aware of it, because there's nothing more annoying than applying that whole toner on. Some areas drop down, or you'll get a band.
Yeah.
Where it would, it just drives me nuts. So it's just really analysing everything more. Then you've got and porosity is like an external damage. Quite a lot of people have got it. They, you know, you can't help it in some cases. That's why the miracle treatment that we use over at 11 is brilliant. But I don't know the one for yellow, so I do apologise. I've still got to learn my my yellow.
It's the
retail
benefit. It's good.
Is that?
Yeah, really good.
I use the straightening treatment. So use the straightening treatments and straightening products. Actually, they're absolutely amazing.
The Little Benefit has 10 different benefits in there, so it's got your heat protection and everything in it. It's really nice.
I've been using the oil.
That's nice as well. Nice.
It is actually really nice. A little bit obsessed with it actually. I might have put too much on today. So the porosity would be like, so if you've got like a roof and all your tiles are laying there, and you've got a couple of tiles missing off your roof, when it rains, you're going to get water through more where the holes are than the rest of it. And that's kind of how porosity is external damage. Okay, you can fix porosity with products from the yellow range, just to kind of fill them holes before you put products on, etc. Perhaps that 11 benefits might be quite nice to put on before you put a tint to even out the porosity. I'll have to test that. But then if you've got sensitivity, this is when the inner structure, the heart of the hair is damaged, and this is where it will absorb all the warmth and will look really flat. So if you're using like a 9-3 or a 6-3-2 or something, you want to see the warmth. If the hair is sensitized, it's just got, and it's going to look quite flat. So generally in them scenarios, I would add, especially if it hasn't faded massively, or maybe they haven't even had their hair coloured yet, I would add a little bit of copper, an inch or two of copper into that mix to make sure that warmth really sticks in there. And if the hair is really sensitized, it also makes my ends a different scenario completely. So we've got to make sure we assess it and make sure that we apply the colour correctly. Now, a sensitised hair, I would normally pick up one strand. I'm doing a big one so you can see. I would wrap it around, keep my thumbs together and just gently tweeze it. Okay, I don't want to pull it over here because it will snap, but just gently tease it. And just remember, this would be one strand of hair. I generally wet it down because that will break down the hydrogen bonds a little bit more so I can see how strong the disulfide bonds are. The more wigglier the hair goes, the more sensitised the hair goes. Now, the reason this is quite important is because if this lady here was a 6.32 and a 6 all the time, and over lockdown she's been out in the sun, or God knows what they've done, loads of heated products, maybe they've put something else on their hair or what have you, and she's come back to me and she's got a nice long regrowth down to here, but the ends are really faded, so they're probably more up to like an 8 or a 9. But they're sensitised, I would always pre-colour that because I need to put that pigment back in before I put my colour over the top. Sensitised hair won't hold it. So although on the day, and this is the problem with most scenarios like heat, long regrowth applications, all things, they look good on the day. And you think, oh, well, that won't too bad. They tell you can't apply it like that, but that looks good. 4 weeks later, you're going to have a bigger problem because that's when you'll get the band in, you'll get the fade even more again. Your clients are, well, you know, I thought this colour was amazing. Why does it keep on fading? And we can blame retail to a certain degree, but it's also the fact that we need to go through that process a little bit more. If you don't have time to do it on that day, don't be frightened to say to your client, look, today I can do a real quick fix where I can put the tint on the roots, I can do tone on the lengths and ends. It's going to fade incredibly quick. I'm going to have to make it a little bit warmer on the lengths and ends, which is generally if I put my little dab of copper in, so it's almost like working like a colour match. But next time, we're going to need to book you out for a pre-colour and a tint again. But it's trying to adapt to your clients beforehand. I always try and get my clients to send me a picture prior. Although I'm not going to really analyse it, it will give me an idea of fade on the lengths and ends and how much time I'm physically going to have to book out if I do need to do a pre-colour. So lengths and ends are really quite key. If they've got a long regrowth, I'd have to do a long regrowth application, which is very similar to your virgin head application, as in where you would always start from the back. I'm going to show you through the top. See if I can get my mannequin head in. And you'd get the hair here and you would apply the band about 1.5 centimetres away from the roots up until where the colour starts. So you would apply that long regrowth application there first. Okay, I'm going to try and see if I can draw this to explain it a little bit. God, she is noisy today. She was quite good yesterday, the other day, wasn't she?
Right, yeah.
So you've got your head here, and this is your hair. This is your long regrowth. Stay fixed. Molly! Oh my God, sorry guys. So you've got your 632 through here. Okay, and we're going to try and take her back to here. I'm going to put her out in the garden, sorry.
That's being told off.
Good girl, come on. Stop it now. Sit up there. Come on, sit there. Okay, so you've got your 632 on the lengths and ends. This is kind of your long regrowth, and this is where I'm putting in my pretend regrowth, okay? So what I would do is I'd apply to this area first. Then once I've done the whole head, I'd go back over and apply to this area here. Yeah. Okay, so if I say a scenario is she's got 70% white hair, I'd apply my 6.32 and 6 with the oxidant that I need. She's not needing any lift. Apply that through to here, then apply through to the roots. If I need to pre-colour the hair, I'd pre-colour this area first, remove that.
Yeah.
Okay. Then go in my mid-band roots, take through.
And it does take time, all of this, doesn't it? I think that's another thing on your consultation and the client expectation. It's not quick.
No, and I think we get worried by that as well, because one, it's going to cost more, and at the moment with the current situation we get worried about saying actually this is going to cost a bit more. It is going to take time, but at the end of the day the result is going to last a lot longer, so the client's going to be a lot more happier in the long run, which again means that they're going to return.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to lengths and ends, regardless, and the reason we do this application is because your hair keratinizes. It gets harder as it goes through, as it grows out. And it's generally after about an inch, just over an inch, that all the cuticles on the outside start hardening. And that's when they become a little bit harder for colour to get into. So that's why you need to apply it to that area first and then on scalp area afterwards, because it's a lot more gentler.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah. I always put colour through the lengths and ends regardless. And the reason I do that is because yellow is rich with argan oil. And I think it's incredibly important that the lengths and ends always get that.
I think it just, as a client, you just feel fresher. You know, sometimes, like with my hair, this is what I look at. I don't look at that. I look at the overall sort of like tones that I've got in my hair. So if I was just to go and have my roots done and then these were a bit yellowy, a bit wishy-washy, you know, it didn't look as shiny and as healthy, then I would kind of feel like that wasn't a great colour. So I do totally agree with you, you know, and tone on tone, you don't have to keep putting more permanent colour on it. You can use the tone on tone that just gives it that beautiful shimmer and luxury feel.
Yeah, and I think, you know, a client comes in, they don't necessarily want to just pay for the tint that they're having on the roots. So it is nice to put it through to the lengths and ends. I don't give my clients a choice, even if it's for 5 minutes with the tint that I've used on the roots, and I'm just going to emulsify it through to the lengths and ends for 5 minutes. That's what I'll do. If there's a lot more fade, then obviously I would generally, I'll just go with a tone on tone anyway and just leave it on from anything between 15 to 20 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes, depending on how much it's faded on them lengths and ends. Now, and all that literally does is rejuvenate with the cosmetic feel, allows the colour, because the colour is the only thing that's going to enter the cortex. So it's going to allow that argan oil to really go in there and do its job, which is quite nice. So it always gives you that shine from the roots.
Yeah. Amazing.
And his clients generally, when they get fed up, it's normally this area that they can't manage because it's dry, frizzy, it gets out of control. So then if for instance, you've got a client that's come in and the lengths and ends are at different times. So they're a wonderful client. They've come in, they've coloured their hair themselves perhaps at home, or maybe seen a different hairdresser and gone for a colour change. Anything could have happened through that time. There was a lot working that shouldn't have been. And what I would do is I'd look through their mid-lengths and ends and check first for incompatible tones. And what I mean by the incompatible tones is if I've got a red client and they want to be a copper, my red is going to shine through a copper. So if you think of a bit of like that translucent paper and you put a red and then you put a copper see-through bit of paper on top, that red you're still going to see. But if the copper was first, so that's compatible. So if she was like a 7-4 and I wanted to put a red over the top, that's going to sit because the red's stronger than the orange. So it will sit right over. So it's just thinking of these different things. Now we could, a lot of people leave it. A lot of people tint people red and then go put an ash or like a metallic over the top to neutralise it a little bit. I personally don't recommend that. I find that if you're doing that, it's like the painting scenario that we were talking about the other day when you've got the pot of water and your paint brushes and every time you change colour, you put your brush in, it looks like pond water by the end of it. And that's what you're going to do here. It's going to get to the point where the end is going to have so many multitonals on it, it's not going to know what tone it wants to be. So I always talk to client, mahoganies are generally ones that I cleanse. And if I'm going warmer, someone's just joining me now. If I'm going to go warmer from an ash, again, I would cleanse it out. So I always say, if in doubt, cleanse it out.
Yeah, I like saying, I do like that. It just gives you the best canvas, doesn't it? And obviously, you have to, there is a compromise on condition if you are cleansing colour out, isn't that? You know, it's not going to be like the perfect head of hair. You've got to make those decisions in your consultation.
Yeah, and it's also as well, if you've got someone that's had like a 9-3 or a 6-3 or something like that for ages and they say, I want to go cooler, I feel like I need a little bit more muter, if you put an 8-1 over the top of that, you know that yellow, gold, and 1 blue will make green. So although it might not go Grinch green, it will look quite khaki and quite, I always say, quite murky. So it's always important to cleanse that out first. And like I say, if in doubt, cleanse it out. It doesn't take a minute. It's literally with your 7 levels pre-lightener, your 10 vol, and your shampoo mixed in. It's 1 to 3 of your oxidant.
I've got the bathroom poster, as if by magic, and it's on the staff room poster as well. So I think it is, colour removal wash. So it's all on there as well.
Brilliant. So if you was to use 25 grams of your 7 levels, it would be 75 grams of your 10 vol, and maybe just like your 10 mils of your 75 mils of your 10 vol, and 10 mils of your shampoo mixed in. You can leave between 5 to 10 minutes, dampen the hair down prior. So I always do this at the back wash because I have a little bit more control, and I literally just apply through the areas and massage it through. Wait 5 to 15 minutes until it's lifted that tone out. You generally see it generally goes quite orangey, because it's going to show that raw undercoat, and then rinse off, dry, and apply your colour as normal. If, for instance, they've got a bit of a dense area in their regrowth, so they've got like just a patch that's just slightly dense, but it doesn't need an awful lot of work, but it's going to create a band. You can go in with your 000 with 10 vol and just literally apply that onto that area, and what that will do is just give you kind of like a depth shift. It will just take that a little bit out, and that would just create, like, get rid of any banding areas. But the gentle cleansers are really important. Again, I think people forget. They quite often look at it and go, oh, that's okay, I'll put a bit more ash in so it denses it down, and then they wonder why they get a really nice vibrant root and the ends can be quite dull.
No, I think that's a really good tip.
The cleansing, I cleanse way too much. I'm a little obsessed with it. Amazing. But then I get quite a lot of colour changes.
There's a lot we've gone through.
There is, along with the nutty dog barking.
This is home life. This is lockdown life. It's all good.
I got rid of the kids and now I've got the dog going mad.
Yeah,
it's worse than the kids.
You can be thankful for some things. So we've done DOP, we've done extended regrowth, we've done cleansing. I love the scenario about the sand, of how it looks. So sort of like the bigger particles, and just thinking about, how they remove from the hair. Some really good stuff that you've gone through here.
The sand one I always find quite fascinating because, people can't always get their head around. When you look at a diagram of a hair structure, you've got the macrofibrils, microfibrils, protofibrils, and literally the whole combination of things, keratin chains all coming out. You sit and you're like, your brain explodes. So I always just think, just think of a beach. You granular the pebbles. The more pebbles there are, the darker the hair will be. Because if the pebbles are darker, the less the sand you're going to see. It's going to appear a lot darker. And straight away you just see, especially youngsters, like, oh yeah, I get that. It's fabulous.
It's to get, we're really interested in this, obviously, because that's why we're here talking about it. But getting the younger generation that are coming through the colleges to sort of understanding this, I think if we can do this now, like you say, not waiting until you're qualified and everything, start with this, I think it's brilliant. So thank you, Lennie. You're welcome. Amazing. Thank you for your knowledge. I sit here all the time when I do this kind of stuff, and I'm like, right, okay, I want to go and do hair now. I want to go and analyze people's DOP, and it's really good. Thank you so much, and thank you for doing this twice for me.
I hope we didn't miss anything from last time. I tried to.
We did everything. So thanks for joining us, and thank you, Lennie. I really appreciate it. And it's recorded. So all good.
Oh no, I can see it on there now. I didn't know that from before.
There we go. All right. So thank you very much, and I'll see you all soon. Thank you.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.